What is going on, everyone? This is your man King May coming back with you all right here in the King May YouTube channel. Today, you guys, we have something completely new, completely different. As you guys can see, we are on a fan's own personal save game. They sent it to us, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and revamp the farm up a little bit. We're going to spice it up. You missed the basketball hoop, didn't you? You missed it.
Yeah, I even tried a couple other times to try and cheat it, and no, I missed every single time.
Oh gosh. All right, so just to let you all know, Jake was taking a shot, and if he missed that basketball shot, we were gonna have to redo the entire thing like from scratch. So
yep. So King, it sounds like to me we are redoing this lucky subscriber's entire farm for them.
So coming up and just taking a general look at it, it's not a bad layout. It really isn't. They're wanting a horse farm, semi-similar-ish American-style horse farm to what we kind of did on Flint Hills.
That is correct. They have a cattle operation right now, and they want us to expand it into a horse operation as well.
All right. Well, what do you think, Jake? Should we get after this build?
I think so. First steps first is to get rid of this flatness and see what the natural land has for us to offer, because that might adjust what our plans are going to be here.
And again, y'all, if you like today's video, please let me know in the comments down below. Give me a big old thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed to the King May community on YouTube, make sure you go ahead, smash that subscribe button for me as well. But anyways, we're going to get to going. We're going to tear this down, and we're going to see what we can do with this here. All right, Jake. So we ended up wiping the field clean, didn't we?
Yep. We restored the hill back to how it formerly was, and we went ahead and painted grass in here for a nice base layer so we can see what we're going to be doing a little bit easier.
I think I'm going to go ahead and place the Lone Oak farmhouse. That's what they had before, but I did end up turning the house just a little bit here so that we can gain ourselves a little bit of a backyard area. Okay, so starting with the sheds, we had a longer 72 by 150 shed. This one was longer. It was over on the very end here. We're going to go ahead and kind of find a little nestled spot for this one here.
So one thing I want to look at here while you're going through all of that, I'm going to very roughly paint in some gravel just to try and mark out that driveway a little bit. But I want to get a good idea of our traffic, or, you know, kind of our road hierarchy, if you will. So while you're placing down these sheds and stuff in the rough vicinity of where you had them, I'm just marking out in front of the doorways so we know roughly where those are on those barns, so we can keep that in mind.
All right, so upon realizing that I used the wrong shed, I went ahead and swapped it out. I realized now that he used the Millennial Soy shed next to the bigger red barn here, bigger red shed, I should say.
Interesting enough, the door layout was almost exactly the same.
It was the same, but I wanted to make sure I got the same shed placed down.
So I'm just going to go here and clean that up a little bit and remark these doors so we know where they are when we go to connect all the driveways.
Placing the sheds back similar to what they were. I believe I got the correct sizes, and all we did is just kind of squeeze up the shed spacing a little bit so we can bring that gravel road in, have access to these sheds, but still have enough space to come on through even with a little bit larger equipment in between the sheds leading up to the rest of the farm.
So because this is the main entrance and it's going to be the highest traffic portion of the farm, I am going to give it a rather wide driveway here. Do we want to look at those bins and see if there's a better place for us to put those bins now?
I do believe up here by the main entrance, it would be kind of better to put those bins up in this corner. That way you can separate off that traffic and the noises furthest away from the house.
I agree. It's also right up along kind of your main road, if you will. So it'll be easy access for whatever equipment or trucks or tractors that need to access those bins. What do you think about this V up here by these sheds? I feel like we should probably fill in that V as well.
So the other trick that we use, I don't know if we've necessarily told too many people about yet, but when we built the horse sheds in Flint Hills, the way that we were able to get inside of the sheds and place those placeable gates is because of the fact that the floor was open inside of the shed. It was the same style as this, so we were able to modify the ground texture in here, and as you just saw, kind of smooth out that area. I think the hardest part for a lot of people too do when it comes to map editing is getting lost when the ground gets deformed like this. It's okay to mess around with it. You can make mistakes. The mistakes are where you kind of learn, I guess, your limits as far as what you can and can't do with the tools. If you pull up your F1 menu, it will guide you through as far as what the ground terrain can do. When I say smooth, I'm just holding down my mouse wheel. When you raise and lower, the biggest tricks I can do with that is when I'm smoothing, I use Control E and Q to bring up my intensity. However, whenever I'm building, so I'm using my left mouse or right mouse to raise and lower that ground, I tend to take that Control Q, take that all the way down to 0.1, so it moves very, very slow, so you can guide it a little bit more. Now, with kind of laying out the sheds, I didn't exactly snap to the grid when it comes to the sheds. Sometimes that helps with being able to kind of build that dynamic of customization and angles and whatnot. But the hard part is when you have mods, like especially the modding world, Cow Barn doesn't exactly have those snap to lines. So with that being said, it's going to be off kiltered a little bit, which is okay. Nothing in life is exactly perfect, exactly spot on.
This little rock road thing going on here is completely useless. It leads to nowhere. What are your thoughts on me just painting that in so we can paint in whatever we want here?
I'm thinking so. I'd agree with that. So a challenging spot, I would say, is coming around the sheds, barns, those areas. What I kind of did here is I just making sure that my brush strength is all the way down at 0.1. I kind of brought that up so that we know that we're at a good level, and then I take left and right mouse button at the same time. I'm kind of dragging them out and just at least around the initial area of the barn, getting these levels all the same height. And the reason being is because otherwise you're going to have floating spots where the barn itself is not exactly down on proper ground. After that, you can fade away the ground texture off of that to create your levels, just the same as what we've been doing. Now, the other thing that normally I don't really like doing or seeing are the trigger points. Now, in this instance, I'm not exactly sure of our subscriber and whether or not they necessarily have this barn memorized. So with that being said, I am going to leave this. We do need to build this area out just a little bit around this auger for the manure, and then we can smooth out from there. Again, noticing that brush strength. Whenever I'm smoothing using the mouse wheel. If you press in on the mouse wheel, you are able to get that nice smooth rounded edge. It's just grabbing from your lowest, your highest point in whatever the size of the circle is. Gonna try and balance level and smooth between those two heights. I am going over this fairly quick, so I might miss some spots. Normally what I tend to do is go through on a build, I'll smooth everything out as best as I can see, but then I have to drive my vehicles around on the area and see what it is that I missed, what could be better, what could be smoothed out or roughed up a little bit. Any of those, it's generally what I can smooth out though. All right, Jake, so at this point we pretty much have everything back in place from what was before. I'd like to move on to the extension that he wanted to add on, sort of a horse farm, an American style horse farm. It's sort of more your expertise. I followed you quite a bit with Flint Hills.
Sure. So what I think we should do, because this roadway, this essentially I'm going to call it a gravel road, is a one-way lane that leads to nowhere but this farm. We can consider it one big driveway. And if that's the case, then we should have no problem placing the horse barn back in the vicinity where we have all of our buildings already, since it'll be the closest for running water, the closest for running power, and everything like that. And then we can place on the opposite side of this driveway here a nice large turnout pasture that kind of mirrors this natural, or rather unnatural, line that has been made between the two fields.
Copy that. So we're mainly going to keep all the buildings together. We're thinking maybe building a similar style shed or barn, I should say, kind of like the nursery we did on Flint Hills, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best idea for us when looking into what to build for a barn for this. Really, horses are quite simple. You give them a place to turn out, you give them a place to go in, and they're gonna be happy.
Copy that. We can maybe extend off of there just a little bit, build some fencing in the back there just for that nursing, just in case they want to do any sort of RP styles with foaling at all. We'll give them a little bit of a pasture back in here then alongside of that, and then we'll keep the primary pastures across from the house then. kind of like this older barn here. This is a barn that's called Dusty, and it's by JMF Modding, if I'm not mistaken. But we felt that this one fits the flow of the farm, and it just looks quite a bit better. We also went ahead and added in the Elk Mountain Ranch setup here for the horses on the farm. I felt that the fencing kind of fit in quite a bit better. Should fit in pretty nicely. Coming over here, there were some questions on how we did the fencing on Flint Hills with all of our horse pastures. So what I ended up doing is we went ahead and we placed these. Now we did a little bit different on Flint Hills. On Flint Hills, we had the cattle version of this that has the fence. We placed it down, we traced out the fence line, deleted out or sold the cattle pasture, and then waited or replaced, I should say, the horse pasture in its place. And then I went ahead and I picked the highest points on the pasture, and we just went ahead and traced that edge on the exterior of the pasture all the way around, keeping that same level so the fence looks good. And then once we place that fence down, we're going to come back in, smooth this, and then that way you keep your multi-levels inside of the pasture area, making it look and feel more real. Now the other trick with the fencing as well is I held C and used my arrows on my keyboard to snap to grid these pastures. Now with that being said, I can do the same thing with the fence. I can hold C, use my arrows, and as you guys can see, it is snapping this fence to the grid of the map. I'm coming to the corner here. I'm gonna go ahead and we're just gonna try and take it more to the edge if I can here. And the only way to do that is just to kind of hide in your posts and overlap them a little bit.
Over here, pathways are all painted. Majority of grass has been painted. I've gone through and added, there's a nice like puddle texture and tire rut texture. I've added that in some key areas. It's coming along pretty nice so far.
Very nice. Looking good as well. All right, so one of the more challenging things, I would say, it's getting the textures to look right around the placeables. And we're going to be going back and doing kind of a final touch on this, but I just kind of finished up making the track as if you were coming in here. And we'll kind of pull this down a little bit as well. There's really no technique to this other than just practicing. And the more you do it, the more you can kind of just feather that painting tool and kind of make it look like there's a little bit of a dirt track where you were coming in and feeding your bales, feeding water, and aside from that, your eating zones where the horses would be kind of trampling out. You're just kind of placing in random spots and just kind of making it look as if this area is heavily used. All right, so Jake and I kind of talked about it. We did cover up the trigger points, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of place a stump in here roughly where the trigger points are,
and that's just to help the person when they do come in to try and put horses in here, so they realize these are actually 3 pastures made into one large pasture.
All right, Jake, checking in. I think we're doing pretty good here.
I think so. We've got a nice pasture over across the road. All of the buildings are in place. We really just got to go through, make sure there aren't any leveling issues, make sure there aren't any texture issues that we need to fix. We have painted in the pathways and the grass, and pretty much every area we should have at least. Really, we're into decorations. We're into trees, decor items around the house or the farm, and those various sorts of things. I think first thing I want to do is go down and just get a ground level view from the home. Since I've been looking at it from the sky the whole time, this is a good way to figure out if we've got anything that just feels wrong or if there's any floating buildings. All right, King, I think we're done.
I think we are. I mean, when it comes to manipulating a farm and building, I mean, it really doesn't ever stop. There's always little things that you can always continue on, but I think this turned out awfully well. Starting here with the statue.
The statue is like a nice center point. You're coming up the driveway, you got that statue right there to the right. I think it really sets the mood and sets the boundary. You know what it does? It actually pulls us together. So originally it felt like this road would have continued through, and it felt like, half the farm was on one side, the other half on the other. But with that there, it feels like you just pull into the farm.
We illuminated a little bit. We got some lights underneath here as well, so it should look really good at night as well. But it definitely pulls the horse pasture across from the house and the main portion of the farm. Coming on in, though, we got ourselves a gate coming into our large pasture. If you guys were watching my recording, you'd see that. We ended up doing, I don't know, I'd say it's a pretty gosh darn good job. We got kind of our track marks sort of going around to each of the trigger points for feed, for water. Got a couple of shelters in here. Got our drain path going through that was in here before, kind of splitting through on this little section here and going down and draining through the underneath the fence down there.
That's actually a really cool feature of the of this pasture here, is this little drainway. I really like that.
Gives it a dynamic. No, I couldn't really help the fence floating. That was kind of a tough point to do. I would say one of the more challenging builds that I've done with that, but trying to get a drain to go through. But for the most part, I think it looks pretty good. Coming around, I don't know, looking at the sheds, kind of put in some decor, some tires and whatnot, just kind of making this farm feel more homey.
Making it feel like the space is actually used.
Exactly. Coming in though, we got the grain bin set up, which is looking pretty good, I would say, and wrapping around and just again got some decor kind of around the edge again, making it look like they're actually utilizing the space. Got ourselves kind of a gravel path going to almost everywhere on the farm here. And again, I kind of showed covering the trigger spaces if they wanted to go through and kind of finalize with that. Wrapping around the back side of this barn, just kind of went in, textured the ground in here. Made it really feel at home. We got our leadway coming up to the top side of the barn here for bale storage or storage of really anything. I mean, there's plenty of shed space, so I would say this would be a great place for your bales. And wrapping around again, we set the Elk Mountain Ranch horse pen down in here. Figured this would kind of tie in very nicely with the fencing. It's very similar anyways to the cattle barn over there, so it would fit in rather nice. We weren't really able to get a tree line in, were we, Jake?
No, that's one of the issues of building so close to the edge of the map. Sometimes you just run out of buildable space and you can't fit a tree line in. But, this area isn't necessarily all that naturally treed, so it would have looked a bit out of place anyways. So I guess you just have to kind of deal with looking off at the edge of the map, unfortunately.
Agreed, and I would say arguably Lone Oak's map edging is not nearly as rough as quite a lot of maps that are out there. So
that's pretty true.
It's really not terrible without having a tree line there. Coming through though, just seeing the back side of the barn here, you do have a milk parlor there. Your manure pile is going to come out right there, and just kind of wrapping around on the back side of the barn here of usable spaces for driveways. So coming on in, we did just kind of landscaped up around the house a little bit, actually made their stepway. Of course, as you guys all know, this is the house actually on Lone Oak, so there's not much to see there. I kind of made this semi-hidden, but at the same token, it is a walkway going through there. I wanted to kind of make it feel a little tight. We got our log stack there for wood for inside of the house, and coming on into the backyard. There's kind of a lot going on back here, but at the same token, it's I think it really makes the house just pop a little bit more. Overall though, Jake, what do you think? Calling this one a wrap?
I think we did a pretty good job on this one. We're going to be sending this back to the person who originally sent us this farm. If you guys want us to fix your farms, all you have to do is use the information in the description down below to send us the building mods that you have, the save game to your farm, as well as the map. Please remember to send us the map. That's an important one.
Kind of the big one.
I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out, King. I think we did a good job, and I hope that the subscriber that sent this in enjoys it as well.
All right, y'all. So again, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you smash that like button, and again, make sure you go and check out Jake, the Formal Pickle. He's going to have a link with this video so that you guys can get to that mega and set us that information. But Jacob, thank you so much for subscribing and supporting our channels, and hopefully you enjoyed the build here. But anyways, we're going to catch you all in the next one. Peace!